this many people?
Oh, because I made it so hard. They probably are clicking on the first email,
Oh, got it.
and then it takes them a few minutes to realize that nothing's happening, you know, and then nothing's gonna connect, and then hopefully they can look at the second email, and it might take a good, email isn't always instantaneous.
That's for sure.
So I'm just gonna write some stuff here in the chat. So I've listed the things in chat there that you'll need to complete to design. You'll need to design newly for the final projects. So we know we're working on a type book here, and it needs to have a table of contents. That's what TOB stands for. A cover, a colophon, a title page, a text-heavy spread, plus the overall design of the book. So that's kind of designing the book itself, and then what you put in it will be, of course, your pieces from the class. Um, and like David was saying, if you want to, branch off a little bit from that, that's cool. Or if you want to leave out something that you don't particularly care to share, that's cool. I'm sure you have plenty that you can share. We just have to fill up the 16 pages. So I'm going to go ahead while we're waiting for everyone else and launch InDesign. And we're going to talk about the pages that you need to design. So there's a number of new things, of course, that you have to get through. I'm recording this. So by now, most of you will have started the book. And if you were working along with me before, you have, defined the book and saved it and named it so that you don't have to start, totally from scratch. So it's a minimum of 16 pages, like we discussed. It involves a cover. Now, the cover and the book can add up to 16 pages. So you might use this file to design pages, or I should say spreads, from page 2 to page 15. And you'll be able to copy paste your cover in just to give you the convenience of designing it side by side as a spread. Of course, that's optional. Yeah, I had these named wrong. That's right. I have them named exactly opposite of what they should be. So your cover is a 2-page document and your book is a 16-page document. So last week we talked about master pages. We talked about page numbering. We pointed out some tutorials for that. Table of contents. That's one of the ones that you have to design. And that shouldn't be like an afterthought. It should be something that, you know, that you design well. You want to showcase your own work here, and you want to showcase your own work inside of your own work. So you have the opportunity to shine. So last week I encouraged you all to look at books, to go and just pick up all kinds of different books and look at how they laid out their table of contents and how they laid out their title page and their colophon and how they designed their cover. And of course, there's all different kinds of ways, especially if you're referring to how they designed their cover. That's kind of a work of art in itself. So this is kind of a old-fashioned 1950s table of contents. Not that they didn't make nice ones then, but this is very businesslike. But I want to point out to you these little dots between the name and the page number. Little dots. Those are called dot leaders. Let me type that in. Dot leaders. That's a term for them. And they're just a visual guide so that the viewer can easily find their way from the end of a word to the actual number. So you take away the dot, they still probably find it, especially like this, where there's lots of space. But if they were tightly packed, that would become a little more difficult. So dot leaders are a common way to a common inclusion for tables of contents. So there are, of course, tables of contents that do not include dot leaders. They're easier to make. I don't particularly care for this one a lot because it's kind of just, ooh, I'll just center everything in the middle and I'm done. Doesn't show a lot of style, doesn't show a lot of design, doesn't show a lot of typographic uh, hierarchy. So here's an example of one's pretty densely packed. And this one, in my opinion, could benefit from the ... leaders. So there's not a lot of space between each of the chapters. So it's just like if it was written in a paragraph, just standard leading. So I might easily lose my place when I like if I read from chapter 5, the Sprayer family, and then my eyes follow over to the right, and I'm choosing page 64 as the first page of chapter 5. Okay. But if I had actually those ... dots would be easier to read. Now, the other thing about this particular design that might strike you is that they wrote chapter. They wrote the word chapter, for Pete's sake, 24 times. All the other information on the page is unique, but they wrote chapter 24 times. Maybe that's okay. Maybe it's a little redundant. Maybe they could have figured out a way to write the word chapter just once and then just list the numbers and then people would get it. I liken this to where on your business card or sometimes on websites and stuff, they'll actually have a word like TEL colon, like for telephone. So TEL colon, and then it lists a phone number. Like we don't know what a phone number is. Or it'll actually write out email, E-MAIL, or no dash, EMAIL, and then a colon, and then they'll write out their email address. Like we would never have been able to figure out that was an email address if you hadn't labeled it like that. So much. Thanks for that. So I liken that here. So you never want to treat your audience like a moron. And I'm not saying that this does, but they could have been a little more creative in how they figured it out. So the one on the left is kind of like the one we just saw, except they got the dots. Hoorah. And they got the Roman numerals. That's kind of, I don't know, classy. It's not all that pretty, but it's classy. And then the one on the right, see, now we're jumping forward 50 years. The stuff we've been looking at is pretty old. So now we're in the 21st century. And this looks like a textbook. Lots and lots and lots and lots of divisions, lots of chapters, lots of things to look up. It's like an index. So they put instead of leaving the page number on the right, it's on the left, and then the name of the section, of course, is right next to it. And then they break it up with the bolded section 24, 34, 46. So that also gives you a visual division, but it's pretty tightly packed. So this is like an inside cover jacket design. No, this is actually a table of contents. This is a unconventional table of contents. So instead of doing anything in list form, they've made a bunch of divisions on the page, rectangular divisions, and they've put icons in there for the most part, but also words like wood, page 76, paper, page 10, plastic, page 44, metal, page 108, glass, page 138, fabric, and then the little pictures also have page numbers. They're in between. Oh no, it's not even listed chronologically, so it's all mixed up. I guess there are larger numbers on the right-hand spread than the left, but if I want to, so it makes me wonder if I look at the upper left and I see this hanger, and then it says page 118 for this image of a hanger, what am I going to get? Am I going to get a hanger or something poetic? I don't know. Cover design. And that can be anything. There are, some things that make it legible in high contrast. The same The same aspect of page layout apply to cover design as any page layout. This is pretty clever. This is a page, title page. And they're playing with the bindery here. So this would be really hard to design because you'd have very little control over how close the bindery or how far away it was. So you might print 100 of them and maybe 20 of them line up like this when you open up the first page. But it's a title page. So they've trying to be clever here, and they've broken it up into 2 pages. Yeah, there's the other page. And that right-hand spread there, that's dedication. You know, that's not a necessary element, but oftentimes when someone makes a book, writes a book, you know, they got a lot of support to do it. They had to do a lot of research. They had to bug a lot of people. People had to edit their work. People had to give them encouragement to keep going. So it's often you see dedications for book. And since we're talking about every little thing here on the lower left here, so that's where it says on the bottom, New York, London, Toronto, Sydney, and Singapore. That refers to the publisher. So the publisher is international. So we're spreading our prestige. And by the way, those are written in small caps, which is a choice that you can make with most fonts, small caps. So here they've mixed a serif and a sans serif. Okay. So I'd like to show you dot leaders in InDesign. All right. So I'm just going to use page 3 here of my book spread to do a table of contents. Let me just do the dot leaders by themselves before we do the whole dealio. So let's say orange and grapefruit. I see if I remember how to do this. And then I'm going to write how much it cost. So if you want the orange and grapefruit bowl, it's going to cost you $2.50. Pretty cheap in a restaurant. So I select that, and then the shortcut is Command T for tab, but it's up here under type. Scroll down to the second section, and then there's tabs. So I don't know about you, but I've seen lots of typewriters, but I never really learned to type on one. But they have tabs on typewriters too. So a tab is like an indent on a typewriter. It moves you from the left to the right. And our job here is just to put dots in between when it moves us from the left to the right. Okay. So the reason I selected it like that is so that the tab icon thingy here aligned itself with the text. This thing does move around, but your visual design puts it right there, and that works pretty good. So once again, I would select it. I could probably just select it even with my black arrow. I'll just select it with my black arrow this time. See if it still comes up. Yeah, it does. So no matter how you select it, it should come up if you go to your type menu, pull it down, and choose tabs. So this never works for me the first time. So I'm just going to neaten up my text box here. It's too big.
So when we're doing this, do you want us to run our text box all the way across the page? So we
No.
get the dot? Okay.
I specifically don't want you to run it across the page.
All right. We do not.
So if it's more if it's shorter, it'll be easy to handle like that. And the tab usually conforms to the size of the text box. See that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
got it. Okay.
Mine was kind of cattywampus, so I threw it out and did it again.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
what's on the left is usually what you're selling. If we'd had more time, oh, my scroll's out. Okay, wait, stop, come back. If we'd had more time, we would probably have designed a menu for this class. And we would also have used this technique there. So way too big. Got some room for my dots. Okay. I'm trying to zoom in without changing the alignment, and yeah, it's always going to do that. So I'll just zoom in a different way. Bring this down here, and I'll go like this. So I'm going to stretch my text box out. It was aligned before, but I moved it around to the same width as the tab. Now, if you start out this way, it'll automatically line up to that, but I was moving mine around. Whew, okay. So I got to put the price in there. And then my cursor is going to come back to this spot right between the word and the price. So these things appear tabs. If you roll over them, it tells you left tab, center tab, right tab. And then this is aligned to decimal or other specified character. We don't need to mess with that right now. X is what it's going to, no, leader, excuse me, leader is what the dot's going to be. So normally you would just put a period and a space and a period. I think it actually works with just one. But you can put other things in there like asterisks and other typographic characters. And then this text is already left justified, so we don't necessarily have to pull down a left tab. We could if we wanted to, but I'm going to try to go right to the right tab. And you don't actually click it like that because it doesn't know where to go. So what you do is you drag it. Oh, I lost my 250. So smooth, James. Okay, and then I gotta do it like this. So I want to take this tab. Actually, I think I remember now. You just click in the line. That's it. So you select this tab, and then you just come over here and you click. and it's placed a tab there. You can see the blue thing right here. And then you put your cursor in between the letter and the number and you hit your tab key. And it's supposed to draw. Oh, I lost my leader. So let me put those back in. It's been a while. There. I guess I just had to click it again. And then when I move this, the dot leaders grow or contract to match. So when you're designing with dot leaders and you're adjusting the width of your column, you don't have to redraw or delete any of the dots. They just flow. They flow with the tab.
Nice. That's going to save me a lot of time. Oh, that's cool. Okay.
I should do it again so it'll be smoother. What most of my students do though is they cheat. They just put dot, 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 period, 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 period. But I can tell in the final project if they make them that way because they'll never be as uniform. When you do it this way, they stay very uniform. They snap to the baseline. So anyway, I want to back off here and I want to do it from scratch again. That was kind of, so make a text box, type something. The type something chapter is on page 32. Select it, type tabs. Grab a right tab, or at least click on it, and then not grab, and then click somewhere over here, and then between the word and the thing, hit your tab key, and then you can drag that. Oopsie, you can drag that tab for longer or shorter. I don't know why it's duplicating like that, but maybe it's because I'm too far away. So if I make it shorter, well, that wasn't fun at all.
Hi, Professor. Are you working on the table of contacts?
Yes. I'm
Okay,
showing how to
sorry.
do dot leaders for it, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Half the class was in the other link, on the other Zoom meeting.
I know, but it didn't open till 1:30 a.m.
Yeah, no worries. We left that one, so we're joining on for this one.
Yeah, my bad again.
It's
I set
okay.
it for the AM PM.
We were going around the group and just showing our posters to see if we can get input on them.
Awesome. Awesome. So anyway, that's kind of how you do a dot leader. You need to play with it around a little bit, like I was, to get it to come out just right. But basically it's just a text box. It's some text. And then it's a tab and a tab. So that is like the traditional way to connect the chapter and the page. But we were looking at some different styles there. You don't have to use dot leaders, but you should know how to make them if you're worth your graphic design salt. So think about how you're going to do your table of contents. Again, look in other books. There's plenty of examples out there. So how you design your colophon page, that really depends on what content you want to bring into it. So in the example I showed you, I made up a bunch of stuff. Usually it at least involves a disclaimer that no part of the book can be reproduced without permission. Where's my
What,
column?
what page is the colophon on again?
In the book,
Yeah.
either real close to the title page in the front, or you can put it in the back.
Okay.
There are examples of both in literature.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen the back ones and I thought it was supposed to be in the front when we talked last week. So I was confused when I looked that up. Okay.
I liked mine in the front, but that was just a choice.
Okay, cool.
So here's one for a yearbook. So this one has a lot of text in it. It wrote about how wonderful the students are and blah, blah, blah. And then it defines the sections. One thing I rather like about this is there's no numbers on the chapters. Just like your textbook for this class, she has a letter, word, and paragraph or something like that. And that's how she defines her chapters instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here's the content that I made up for my colophon. So it's got the title of the book, it's got a copyright symbol and my name because I'm like the editor author. It's got an all rights reserved section. And you can only get permission if you write to this person at this address, which happens to be me. So when you do your colophon, it's not going to contain my name, my address, and my zip code, right? It's about you. You can make something up. Now, I used my actual name, as far as you know, and I don't want you to use my
Is that your
stuff.
actual address?
Yeah, I want you to use it as an example. Not so every year I get students that don't quite get that this is an example. You know, I'm giving you a kind of an example that I used, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to replace it with your own information. So here I listed how many photos, production notes, what kind of software I used, what fonts I used, how many pages there were, what size the book is, how many illustrations, blah, blah, blah. And then this was a tribute to the first ever advanced graphic design class that happened back in 2011. So I actually listed the class members. There weren't nearly so many back then.
For us, do we choose who we do that towards?
You can choose who you contribute. You can choose who you list as contributors, or if you wish, you don't have to list contributors at all. But usually, you know, it takes more than one person to. It takes a village, you know, to raise a child. So sometimes it takes a lot more help than one person alone can do when they're designing a book. So give credit to the cover designer, give credit to the photographer, give credit to any references. So I referenced our textbook from Ellen Lumpton, so I'm citing that here. Here I didn't even give an attribution. I put content text for Love Affair page provided by, and then I didn't list anything. But here I list the publisher, and I made it up. It's just Cal State, and a disclaimer. And I made up a logo, and I made up a name of a printer to find.
For the logo, should we make up a logo? Or could we use the logo that we made for our names?
Use one. You can use one you make up. Use one you already had. Either way.
Do you want us to reference Ellen Lupton too, because we're using that in our text heavy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The caveat on that is if you decide to use different text in your text heavy spread, then you would cite that person. You know, because you might find something that you'd like to quote that could be better than
Okay.
that.
So we should cite you too, because we used your quotes. So we should cite you.
Yeah, I'm cited in there as well already.
Oh, okay. We don't have to. Okay, gotcha.
I actually had a quick question on the text heavy section because like I was looking at the example on how to format it and I'm confused as to can we just like use anything for the text heavy? Like talking about what we enjoyed about the project of, typography, or are we like referencing something specific from Thinking with Type?
Specific to typography, not necessarily specific to the words I gave you, but like you could type in Wikipedia typography, and it'll give you all kinds of cool articles and references for writings about typography, and you're welcome to choose from that genre. But I don't really want to hear about your personal musings in the text heavy page. I definitely want to hear about your musings as you comment for the things that you put in for your portfolio. So if you put in your hand, for instance, I'd like to hear some commentary about that along with the rest of the layout. Good question. And if you happen to mix up that a little bit, that's okay too. We just want everything to be coherent. So like, if I require at least 700 words, that doesn't mean you stop at 700 if that's in the middle of a sentence. We're designing it all the way through. Okay. I just Googled what is a colophon. I don't know if you can read that. That's like an old Bible. So most of these aren't going to be worth looking at. Yeah. They just won't show up on your end. Yeah, too low res. Okay, so besides the colophon, there's the title page. And that can be very simple if you want it to be. Where's my example? You know what? Let's just go to our friend Google for that. So I'm seeing a whole lot of white space here. This is like a template for a title page, and more specifically, a title page for a master's thesis. So these are fairly boring. So let's say book title page, because we would like something more creative than that. There we go. So even there, and they're kind of conservative. I love this book. The Jungle Book was written a long time ago. So that's a very old-fashioned kind of studious. That one's got calligraphy and illustration. They're playing up on the Cinderella thing. Okay, let me add a search parameter, modern. They vary so much. This is a template. So yes, you can actually download title pages and replace it with your own information, but that's for little kids. Yeah, we're artists. Not really seeing anything that wows me too much here. But basically, it's going to include the title, the author. It might make reference to the publisher in a brief way. Where's my example? Here we go. That's where it should be. Having a blog moment. So it just has to be there. Oh, here we go at the bottom. Whew, okay, typeface in the book. I showed you this before. It's just a combination of a title page on the right and a colophon on the left. So it takes that information that I'd written up separately, and then I just laid it out on the left there. And I tried to do it very pretty, and I tried to create logical divisions and nice leading and nice type sizes, nice hierarchy, with a little bit of illustration thrown in to make it a little less boring. And on the right-hand spread, it's the title of the book, subtitle of the book, the author. And in this case, I chose to add a little bit of qualification, you know, who the author was or is. He's not dead yet. So look at other books, look at other title pages. Also, I use this opportunity to make this little cross right here. And it's just lines and dots, and adhering to the design principle of repetition. I used it here, and I used it a few other places in the book to bring some kind of coherence between the pages. So you want the book to match itself. Now, we spent sometime last week, as I recall, on the text heavy spread. And that's probably the hardest thing that you have to do. I mean, sure, you can lay out text and stuff, but to fit that much text into a small space and try to make it look like it matches the rest of the book and also fits with, you know, attributions and the small things that you can do, italics and superscripts, subscripts, quotation marks, small caps, drop caps. So you can use all those glyphs. You can use all those sort of refined typographic tools, plus your own ability to make, like, you know, these are little rectangles. I drew the rectangles in InDesign. Big deal. I drew a red circle over here and put TH in it. TH stands for text heavy. So I just tried to interpret it in a way that would be, you know, elegant and easy to read and inviting to read, and that's what I'm inviting you to. It can be very difficult, you know, if you're trying to dress it up. If you're just trying to throw it down there really plain, it can be really easy. But we're hoping for something more than plain here. So you can lay out your quote spread any way you want. Like one of the techniques people use is they don't necessarily put the whole thing on the page. You can, you can design with a bleed and run part of it off the edge for dramatic effect. This is just how I interpreted my quote spread. And because my spread itself is not the easiest thing to read, although you can read it, I reproduced it on the left here in an easy to read fashion. And then of course gave attribution in both places. So you might have comments here, you might have the original. If this were your hand instead, you might have some write-up. We hopefully will have some write-up here about that project. Now I'm asking you to be a writer. I'm asking you to take verbiage from the lessons themselves, from how you feel about it. You can comment on the quote and what it means to you. So with every page layout, I'm asking you to be creative, not just in fulfilling the assignment, but in describing what you're doing. So the idea is that if some stranger that didn't know nothing about our class, so imagine it's not me, and they pick up this book of whatever you name it, and it's going to provide some edification for them. They're going to pick it up and they're going to find it interesting to look at and wonder what it's about. And in order to help them understand what it's about, that's what you write in the book. Now, that doesn't have to be paragraphs and paragraphs. It can just be some information, like a kid's book. If you get verbose and you want to, write a treatise about spatial relationships or something like that, you go. You can add as much text as you want to the book. You can have another text-heavy spread where your philosophy is laid out or ideas that you have about design. So this becomes a portfolio piece, especially if we'd had it printed, that a perspective, somebody could look at it and say, well, this is a book I designed and it's ostensibly a type specimen book, but it's a journey. It's a journey that I made, and it's decisions that I made aesthetically that I want to show, that I can lay out I can make the bacon and I can bring it home and cook it. So I can do the art and I can design a book for the art to go into. Heard this wonderful expression the other day from my dean. Well, that guy had too much. That guy had a lot of soup, big bowl of soup. All right, I know you're snickering and you're just muted.
Do you have other examples
Of which?
of the book layout?
Yeah, I have some student examples. Yes,
Could
ma'am.
we see those?
Yes. Here's one. So I'm going to go full screen because that's how you'll be presenting it too. So when it opens up in Acrobat like this, you go Command or Control L, and it's got the nice black background next to it. Look cool. And then you just click anywhere and it'll go through the pages. So that's her front cover. She did a high contrast sort of portrait on her for herself. And did you see that transition with the little squares? That was her. So here's her title page and colophon page.
Was that an interactive PDF thing? The transition?
No, it's really just a slideshow.
Oh, cool.
But it acts a lot like that. And even when you just have slideshow like that, you can put in transitions either in InDesign or you can add them in Acrobat.
Professor, for the production notes, do you want us to include every font that's been utilized in the book?
Do you think that's important to include in a colophon?
Yes, my apologies.
I think it is, so I'm going to say yes. But you'll notice as you look at other color fonts that the content is not all the same. Now this is a little too boring for me, this color font. First of all, it goes the full width of the page, and it's just a list in one column. So it's, it's not actually an exciting page, just an information page. But I would have liked to have seen her do a little more with it. But she repeats her her image on the title, and I thought that was cool. And your title page doesn't have to be any more fancy than that. So her table of contents. So not pretty. So the way she's lined it up is not terrible, but because the dots of the letters don't line up. So if she did it this way, she should have done 01, 02, 03, 04, all the way down to 9, so that the dots all lined up, because now we have this hiccup between 9 and 10. And also, I can't stress proofing enough. She's got a comma after 10. But the way she laid out art is cool. She just kind of combined it there. And this is underwhelming, to say the least. Terribly underwhelming. But she's good with layout. She really is. This looks fine. Now, that's an exercise on the left that I don't think we did. This is also, in years past, sometimes they had to pick a particular font, and they did do like a display of it. But in our case, we did the typeface poster, which essentially is the same thing, but way better than this. So those are just simple, there's nothing going on there on the left. It's showing examples of the font, further examples of Myriad Pro. But the fact that it's not on the spread of the Myriad Pro, and it's not labeled in any way, it's just kind of hanging there like a loose thread. So here she starts a new section with type crimes. And they're not all crimes. She might have better labeled it type specimens. And the fact that she just put two on a whole page is a little bereft of content. So she did her fair poster. She included some of her progressive variables. I like the way she lays out her stuff. And that's the back cover. So let's show you another one, or two, or three. Morgan. Is it? Nope, that's a cover, or that looks real nice. Now where is she? See, I'm not seeing the whole book here, just bits and pieces. Bear with me, I have some more. So. Yeah, okay. Command L, full screen. So a more minimalist approach. So they're really going for that light touch with the gray text. Now here especially, they have it laid out in kind of a traditional style, but they didn't use dot leaders. I think dot leaders really would have helped here. So there's the commentary about bitmap letter forms. Kind of interesting. It's just it just kind of rambles. It doesn't have any capital in the front and period at the end stuff. So a little light on type samples here. When we did it, we asked for at least 20. So that was pretty good. It's a Leva Fair font. I like how she titled it on the left, and I'm actually kind of liking the way it's laid out on the right there. So she didn't just lay out, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. She's played with this word possibilities, which makes it pretty interesting. I like that. Yep, so she's got some progressive variables, and she's got some commentary about it, and she's following that same form of all lowercase. I got to hand it to her for some consistency here. Typeface poster. Looks like she's deliberately running off the side of the page there. Here's her text heavy. Better than some, not as good as others. This was another exercise that we did this year. Now, I think her facts at hand, which is some of your guys' best work, I would display it more prominently than that. To me, here that we've embraced this minimalism a little too much. So to me, that picture of the dessert on the upper left might be included as an accent, but it's about her facts at hand, and it's not showcased at all. This isn't bad. They're pretty cool. There's another exercise that I wish we had time to do, where she drew it on the left, and one other one I threw out the calendar grid. That's nice. Time to get stuff done. She worked it into the layout instead of trying to present it as a different document. Sometimes you want to see the edges, sometimes you don't. There's your list of 40 things. And notice she's got commentary for almost everything. For inquiries, take VSAR 409. So I don't expect you guys to lay this out like a professional would. I want to see, but I can definitely tell when you put in the effort. Okay, cover design. Reminds me of modern 80s, 90s stuff. Okay, there's his colophon, there's his title page, Table of contents. So there's no getting lost here because the white boxes align me. I can't get lost between the number and the word. So there's his commentary. And when you're looking at a book raw, that you don't know anything about, you need a little explanation. What we're doing here is not your run-of-the-mill stuff. So this book can stand alone if someone picks it up because the artist and author has explained it. They don't have to write, an essay about it, but they've explained it. Now he's definitely chose really big text here to get his message across. And I'm sure that was a design choice. Underwhelming in a big way, especially the right-hand spread. You don't ever want to go the full width of your publication. Columns, Narrow columns always make things easier to read. Plus, there's just no design here. He's basically just laid it down and played with the justification and letting. You could do this and maybe added a drop cap. Underwhelming. So I'm telling you, the text heavy spread is the hardest one. Most people don't do that great a job on it, but some people do an amazing job on it. Quote. See, this is a very different style from the last one. Typeface poster. Facts at hand. I would have devoted separate spreads to both of those instead of putting them on the same page or the same spread if it were me. Like this is devoted to one assignment in a spread. Again, I would have divided these up too. I mean, they look fine together, but it seems like you could get a little more, I don't know, a little more, it's too busy. It just seems too busy. A little more calm. And the back cover. Did great job on the cover. So now you're all wondering, is this what he says about my work too?
The truth hurts. It's all good.
Well, that's what I think, people get all sensitive about racial issues. And since the beginning of time, basically every race has made fun of every other race just because they're different.
That's truth.
Um,
For no good reason.
this is a pretty good artist. She's really good. She actually did her own publications with, she illustrated and wrote books. So she spent a little more time and effort on her text heavy spread. Look at the 40 things that you didn't know about cats. Look at that detail. And of course she drew the cat. And she did this umbrella or a hot air balloon. I consider that a pretty good one. So it looks like every left-hand spread is blank. And because this particular student saved out her PDF as pages and not spreads, we're only seeing one page at a time. So when you lay out yours, when you output to PDF, we'll want you to do it to spreads. And it's no big deal if you do it wrong the first time. You just throw out that PDF, go back to InDesign, and when you get to the PDF screen, there's a radio button for spreads instead of pages, because you can make as many PDFs as you want. So that's not bad. It's spread across too many pages though. So to me, these pages are getting too dense. So with all of the background color and all of the fact that the text is covering up so much of the surface area, it doesn't make me want to read it because there's just too much going on, those big diagonals. If they were really scaled back, but then on top of that, she's got a texture of really faded out gray text in the background. And it looks like graphic design principles over and over again. Too much. Stop. So there's design and then there's over design. Design can get in the way of the message. Now this sucks. Whoops. The layout for this, the poster's cool, but the layout for the page is just awful because the text is going right up against the edge of the image. So we have text wrap for that. Not to mention, you could just pull the edge of your text box away to create a nice margin there. That looks terrible, just terrible. And it's such a nice poster. See now there, see how the text isn't right up against it? It's too close on the bottom here. Yes, yes, I am proud. See, that's a nice touch. See there, she didn't do it. She's got a beautiful little air breathing space right here on the right side before the text starts. And she's also increased the leading to make this kind of light and airy. And in so doing, she matched it up in the bottom and almost exactly to the top, but it looks fine. A couple of things though. She shouldn't have a space. I know I'm being picky between here. There should be no space. In a paragraph of this relatively short length, I would uncheck the hyphen button. So we've got the word amazing here hyphenated. There's no reason for that. There's plenty of room here. And hyphens are good if you've got, if you've got a whole bunch of text, you got to fit in a small space. But improvement here is hyphenated. Don't need that at all. Also, we have another issue here. And if any of you remember this, I'll just be so pleased. Now, you never want to leave a word like this word writing. First of all, it doesn't match horizontally to the bottom of the image next to it. See, it's just a little bit of a stair step. Second of all, it needs to be at least 2 words. So the last line in the paragraph, you don't want to leave that poor little widow, that poor little orphan. They're called widows and orphans. You don't want to leave a widow or an orphan. So widow and orphan is a word all by itself in a line. It just it's not sexy. It doesn't make your paragraphs look good. That looks pretty good, although I would have spread it out to 2 pages. And she's keeping with her same leading here, but I hate to be so picky, there's no period after interesting. It's the end of a sentence. Now, I think, you make your work look elegant and brilliant and well thought out, and then you don't take the time to proof your grammar and your spelling and your diction and the whole thing. That's why some things turn out better than others. That's nice. See, that's a nice use of negative space. And the color doesn't get in the way at all. See, if she had done that instead of that tricolor thing before. So we all tended to design too much. We want it all to be so cool. I got to add this and I got to add that. It's just as important to figure out what to leave out as it is what to put in. Easy for me to say. So this would benefit from 2 colors instead of 3. I think, again, if she'd left out the blue, but it's not bad. It's not bad. So she did a long book here. It's 22 pages. Yeah. Now, even in paragraphs like this, like over down here near the lower corner, it says it's over now. That could have been bolded or just something. Here we've got thank you jammed together with no space in between it. Again, no period. So people don't understand that design is just as much editorial as it is pictorial. So if you don't have the content right, it don't matter. It's gonna make an otherwise well received piece look kind of dumb. So we won't look at all these. How about one more? I don't think this one's very good. Yeah, he kind of phoned that in. Don't remember exactly. Yeah, that's fun. So I see some effort and thought in that. And there's a repeating motif of these horizontal lines that are shown up in the occasional diagonal. Yeah, I like that consistency. And I'm always a sucker for white space. Yeah. So it's not overdone. It's not overdone. Yeah, that lacks a little bit. It always does, the type heavy, the text heavy. But see, he has deliberately these headings on top that have the line underneath them, they're always on the left. You know, he didn't try to make that in the center, but then followed it up with centering. So it looks like this is the frame and this is the content. That organizes my reading. That makes me feel comfortable. But he's got widows and orphans and that kind of thing. But this consistency up here where it's like a front arrow and it makes it look sort of like technical drawing. That's a style he imparted. I like that. So, do you need to see any more?
I'm good.
Cool. Thank you. So, let's see. We did dot leaders. We talked about the pages that are mandatory to design, which are new designs. So that's the front cover, which includes the back cover. So we'll just say the cover, the title page, the colophon, the text heavy page, and the table of contents, and the book itself. So it will include, by requirement, something on the master pages. I want to see some page numbering. And it can include the things that we talked about, but you have some choice there as to what goes in and what goes out. And I'm happy to, let's see, do we need a break? Yeah, I think we need a break. So why don't you come back about a little after 3:30, 30 minutes. And then we'll need to talk before we go a little bit about a review for the final quiz. So take a break. I'll see you in about half an hour.
All right, thanks.
I'm going to type that in. So I've been posting in chat room. You might want to check that if you don't have it open. So I'm sharing my screen now, and I'm at this web address that I just posted in the chat room. So you probably already have this, but I gave it to you again. And that's the whole page of instructions that involve putting this book together. So I'm at that site now, and that type page notes that I just uploaded to chat, that's from here. So earlier we were talking about what kind of things you can include in a colophon. And one of the questions came up from Kat, whether you should include what fonts you used. Now, I'm an artist and I like to include them, so I encourage you to. But if you don't want to, if you want it to be more of a serious thing, you don't have to include it. But since it's about type, it kind of makes sense. But anyway, these are some categories that you may or may not include in your colophon. So that includes citing your source for any outside stuff that you may have brought in. Citing your source if it's you. You want to give yourself a citation too if you did everything. So we covered all the basics like title page and table of contents and colophon. But in places like a colophon or an additional acknowledgements page, sometimes they'll have yet another page they designed that's a whole page of acknowledgements. So you see that a lot in education where they have to thank everybody in the department. So I work for the Business Information Technology Department in San Diego. And whenever they do any kind of publication, it's just got gobs and gobs of acknowledgements because most of the work that they put out is a team effort. So I went so far as to make up things like city of publication, edition size and number. Now, that's a true make-believe at this point, but if you write a book that actually, or design a book that actually gets printed over and over again, so they print some and then they sell them all, and then they print more of them and then they sell those all. So if it's really, really popular and it keeps going, sometimes they'll come out with new editions that involve like new illustrations or new cover art. So in that case, you might include an edition number and size to differentiate it from the original or from subsequent editions. So I'm a geek. I included paper if I know what it is. Any special information like my cat Cheese provided emotional support, and when I couldn't think anymore, I spun her in the chair. People love that kind of stuff. Like going on a game show and telling that short little story about yourself. I'm a teacher from Wisconsin. So every or most every thing that you need to include here is listed here on this page. So I want to point that out as a resource. So you've seen this, and you've seen the thumbnails. Thumbnails, I always think, are a pretty good thing because I'm a visual person. Well, it's in there somewhere. You've seen it. So I guess the only thing we have to talk about is doing a little prep for the final quiz. Now I got halfway through this morning grading your quiz 1, and most of you are doing pretty good on that. No sweat there. And quiz 2, which will be on May 8th, which is your final quiz. Let me just make a note here.
Will we have another quiz review for that one as well?
That's what we're going to do right now. Yes, indeedy. So I'm going to pull up on my other screen over here where you can't see. Give me just a moment while I navigate. We used to make up, or my friend a long time ago made up this word nagavate instead of navigate. So that's the person that sits next to you in the car and tells you where to go. They're not a navigator, they're a nagavator. Guess you had to be there. I don't, boom. So there'll be questions about the book itself that we're designing. So you want to know what a colophon is before you take the final quiz. And we've talked about that, and you can reference it in the instructions on this website page that I'm showing you here. You should know things about books. I've described to you how if you're looking at an open book, that the odd pages are always on the right and the even pages are always on the left. You should know what a dot leader is and how it's used. Just in lots of instances, menus, tables of contents, but you should know what it is. I think we covered all the anatomy questions in the last exam. Should know what a drop cap is. I don't think I need to demonstrate it, but if anybody wants me to, I will. It's like those storybook beginnings. We can establish a drop cap right in InDesign, and I encourage you to do so.
Could you show us, Professor?
Yeah, I'm going to bring it up right here. Silly me, I can't just talk about it. So you've got your paragraph here, and you wish to have a drop cap here at the very beginning, which is also a visual signal of where people should start. Divisions, subdivisions are both good. Then open up your paragraph panel, and you can do it from window, type in tables, paragraph. Or if you happen to have your control panel open like I do, so that's window, control, see I got a checkbox, says my control panel is open. Then it gives you a lot of the tools that you need right up here at the top without having to access this. But however you do it, you put your cursor in the paragraph right where you want the drop cap to go. You can select it if you want, but it turns out you don't have to. And then you open up your paragraph hamburger or flyout menu, and you choose drop caps and nested styles. I'll leave that open so you can see. Oops, right there. Drop caps and nested styles. And then you just tell it how many lines you want it to be big. Do you want it 2 lines big or 3 lines big? So right now it's 0 lines big. But if I click on here and I have my preview box checked, then I can make a beautiful drop cap. Now, drop caps, like other design elements for the most part, should be used sparingly. I remember I've shown this to some students in the past, and they just kind of went drop cap crazy and put it everywhere, and that becomes too much. Everything we do should be done, sparingly, reservedly, with taste, with consideration for space, size proportion to other things on the page. But that does look nice. Now, I hate it when the font comes up bold like this. I told you this last week too, but paragraph copy like this should never be bold. Very, very, very rarely would you ever want it to be bold, because it takes away the readability. So paragraph text should be either regular or perhaps light. And I say this rule, and there are instances where they break the rules in an effective way. But by and large, when you're laying out conservative documents that involve headers, subheaders, and paragraphs, you want to stick to the more conservative solutions, because that's what people like and that's what they expect. Want to make it more readable? Expand the leading. So I'm going to go Window, Type and Tools, Character. Now, usually character and paragraph are bundled together like that. That's how I like to see them. That's how they come up in Illustrator most of the time. But this tool right here is leading. And if I increase the leading, it makes more space between the lines. And that makes for often makes for ease of readability. Now you can go too far, you make it too far apart, it's hard to read. So we're balancing things. We're balancing the font that we chose, the readability of the font before we add any leading. Some fonts are more readable than others. If I had a really artistic or, kind of abstract font in here, and I really liked it and I still wanted to set a paragraph of type with it, I'd be more likely to increase the leading there than I would for something like this, which is totally readable, easy to read, because it's made for that. It's not like Giddy Up or Trajan or any kind of weird fancy font called Crack House. It's a readable regular font, Minion. So if you've opened up that list I sent you about things you could do, is there anything you want me to demo on that? I put it in chat if you saw it. If not, I can just keep going here for a while.
Give us a sec while we open it, Professor.
I beg your pardon?
She said she's opening it.
Oh, okay.
Do you have in that list of things that we're supposed to include, not that one that you just sent us, but just in there somewhere, a list of what page everything should be on and the order it should be in?
I do, but it's also just a sample. I don't want to decide that for you.
Okay. All right. That's why it's hard for me to sort that out. Okay. All right. So you want to give us some sort of creative design on that end is what you're doing.
Yeah. If you put your hand on page 7 instead of page 9, that's totally up to you.
Okay.
Now I would
So we
expect.
will be marked off points, correct?
Let me finish, then I'll answer that. I would expect things like the cover to be on the outside. I would expect
Damn.
the title page to be in the beginning,
Okay.
like that, but you have creative license.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
And I'm sorry, Kat, what was that?
I was just wondering if we would be marked off, or we would be marked off points if we just set it up differently, or just, well, never mind, actually you answered my question.
Okay. Yeah, you have creative license, but you still want the biggest thing is that you want to design the contents in the book so they fit each other. And you want to be able to write a book that's error-free grammatically. And the only way you can accomplish that is to have somebody else look at it after you're done. It's nearly impossible to find every error of your own making. It just doesn't work. So one rule of graphic design is never proof your own stuff. Of course, you look through it and you do the best you can, to fill in any missing periods or, words that were jammed together or whatever the problem is. But ultimately, if there's any text at all in the book, you should show it to someone, especially someone indifferent who doesn't know what you're doing, and just ask them to proof it. Now, if you work for a publisher and you have an agreement and a contract and the publisher is going to publish your book, That would probably be if you were the author, but same sort of difference. We're designing for the author. They would run it through 1, 2, 3 editing cycles probably before it was done. And they would catch that. They would catch most or all of it, probably all of it, because that's what they do. We don't have the luxury of an editor, so we have to ask our sister or our brother or our mama or our papa or your friend or your dorm mate or your dog, whoever's got a sense of language.
I have another question. So I'm not really familiar with InDesign. I just want to know how you set up the book.
Okay, you got it. Do you are you going to play along or just watch?
I'm gonna watch right now.
Okay.
Mhm.
So it's file, new, document. And our document is a custom size. It's now in the instructions that will go with that, it says 7.5 by 7.5. So I happen to have a preset for it here because I already made it a couple of times. But what you'll need to do is change your units over here to inches, unless they're there already. And then punch in a book size of 7.5 by 7.5 inches. And if earlier you guys did 7 or 7.5, doesn't matter, it'll work the same. So it's neither portrait or landscape because it's square. So I don't got to worry about that. And by design, your book needs to be, please, at least 16 pages long. You can go ahead and make it longer if you want, but it always has to be an even number. So not 17, 18, not 19, 20, 22, 24, like that.
Professor,
Yes?
for the PV pages, how do you want us to include all of them in the book?
Absolutely not. Oh my goodness. There's 14 that you did. If you include them at all, and that's your choice, include the ones you like the best. And you don't necessarily have to include them at full size. You saw maybe in some of those examples of previous students' work where they sometimes miniaturized it and put it as part of a page layout. So you have
Yeah.
creative license of how you display it.
Do they have to be displayed in totality, or could it be a design choice to cut them off as, say, like you would cut off, some words in a belief?
Absolutely. You can run them off the page. You
Okay.
can change their size. Like you might want like a really nice detail, really small detail, so you blow it up and all you can see on the page is the detail. Or you might make it smaller, or you might overlap it. You might add a drop shadow.
About how many would you recommend us putting?
How many of what?
About how many would you recommend us putting on the page for the PVs?
Oh, I wouldn't. I want you to decide that. If you've managed to fill up the 16 pages with things that look elegant and fine, and you only want to put in 1 or 2 that you like, or you prefer to leave them out, that's your choice. So there's a pool of things that we've done over the semester, and that pool of things is what you're choosing from to include in your type book. So yes, we're designing the book. Yes, we're all fussy about our typography of the book. Yes, I want you to include master pages and all that other stuff like covers and colophons and titles. But above and beyond that, I want you to design the book.
Okay, I see what you mean.
So as long as you include a cover and a table of contents and a title page and a text-heavy spread, I left something out, maybe it was colophon, and the book itself, including master pages and page numbers, then you will achieve the purpose. But I'm asking you to do a lot. Designing a publication is huge. And it's usually not this easy, believe it or not, because you were working with 2 or 3 photographers and people you're waiting for them to send you articles that go in or something like that. And then you have to proof their articles because most people write with, a lot of errors. It's just a thing. So we're setting up the document for you, bro. And it needs to be a minimum of 16 pages, 7.5 by 7.5. Don't worry about the start. Don't worry about columns. You can adjust that later on. Margin should be a minimum of 1/4 inch like that. I like mine big. I like big margins. I'm setting it at a 1/2 inch. And this
All of,
might be twirled, these two might be twirled up for you, so it'll look like that.
all of these technical specifications are on the a link that you said, right? Or the one that you sent, I mean?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So you don't have to remember them.
The link that's inside the chat right now.
I beg your pardon?
Where can I find that link? Is that the one that's inside the chat right now?
Uh-huh. And it's the one I've made available in, you can also get it from Canvas. It's there. Pretty sure. Cool, okay. So when you encounter the screen, these might be twirled up for you. And the last thing you have to set is a 1/8 inch bleed. So if that's inches, you just do one click there. So now the document shows in the Pages panel the 16 pages. Now these are facing pages. That was also checked in the welcome screen. Facing pages refer to book spreads like this. And then please, or instead of, this would be a design choice that we talked about at some length. You can design the cover within this document. So if you're looking at my Pages panel over here, page 1 is the front cover. Page 16 is the back cover. So you can do all of it right there if you want, or you can design the cover separately and import it and use this document just between pages 2 and 15. I'm not sure how far I need to go with this. I'm thinking you've heard some of it before. Anyway, I'd like to make a separate document for the cover. And this is a design preference instead of trying to split the cover between the left and the right here. So it's file new. And it's the same dimensions, but it's only 2 pages. So reduce your pages to 16. It remembers what we did just a minute ago. So it's still set up like it was. Create. So this document only has 2 pages. And the way I like to do this, and the choice, is I like this one to be right up against that one because I want to see both parts of the cover at the same time. So I come to this section here, which is the flyout menu for the Pages panel. And it's automatically got this thing checked. So I'm going to uncheck the choice that says allow document pages to shuffle. And then I can grab this one and drag and drop it here. So I'm going to design my cover here, and then I'll click over to the other document to design the inside of the book. So I'll just ignore page 1 and 16, and then like page 3 would probably be my title page. But it doesn't have to be. I mean, if it happens to be page 4, that's fine too. Generally, it's in the front of the book somewhere. So what next? How much more do I need to take it? Did you get any of the master page or the page numbering, or did you get any of that typography when we worked out the text heavy spread? Because I went in, because that one is the hardest one, and we spent some time on that. So I'll take it wherever you want to go now. Okay, I know my mic's on, so.
Who asked the question?
I don't know. He, a gentleman, I didn't actually look to see who was talking.
Oh,
No, yeah, it explained what I was like asking for because I wasn't sure how to set up the actual document.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so that pretty much explained it for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because anything else I could do a quick thing on. Right.
I guess one of the hardest ones that you said was the text heavy one. How would you like recommend? Well, how would you say would be a good way to do it? Because I know a lot of them you said that they weren't really done as well. How would be like, oh, or do you have examples that are actually done like correctly?
There's the one in the instructions. Let me take you back to that one. I think I have it in here in my download manager. So I take credit for this, not that it's good, but this is how it's done. The difference between a good one and a bad one has to do with the principles of page layout. Adequate white space, legibility, ease of reading, visual hierarchy. That visual hierarchy is sometimes bold, like the title on this page says ranking progression. So that's obviously the biggest thing on the page, and it happens to also be in a very prominent position, being in the upper left. You know, as Westerners, we read from top to bottom, left to right, so we have an inclination for our eyes to go there anyway. So no surprises, that's where it starts. And then right below that, there's a subtitle. According to artist Scrojo, a promotional poster should answer these questions: when, where, and why. Now that's the same font, but part of it is italic. So beneath that, in the first paragraph where it says all remaining information is subordinate, that column of text happens to be fully justified, except for the last line, flush left. The paragraph next to it, under the why, when, and where, that starts with establish a hierarchy, that's just plain old left justified. But you will notice that the leading on both paragraphs is the same. So the spaces between the lines in the fully justified paragraph and the spaces between the lines of the left justified paragraph line up spot on. Now, to the left of on the far left, where you see the red dot under TH, which is my way of expressing the name of the spread, text heavy, which would coincide to my table of contents, I've got my quote. And yeah, you need to include the quote or that same number of letters. And I did that in very small text, and it happens to be italic. But again, I want you to notice that the spaces, the baselines line up. So that's not an accident. That creates like a matrix. So I added what I considered to be logical page divisions, such as these horizontal bars that you see. So I got one that brings us in at the top, and then this article, which starts with print situates words in space. The article actually starts right here with the word writing, but then there's a little quote here that I snuck in that's related to typography, but not related to this particular article. So this horizontal bar here divides this article at the top from this article at the bottom. And there's citation underneath of who wrote the article and stuff like that. Then there's a separate section here that's visually divided by this black bar, which divides it from this one. You know, I don't want anybody to end one paragraph and think they have to go to the next one. I want them to know when something ends and when something begins. So instead of using bullet points here for the types of disease, typographic disease, that's what she calls it from your book, I've used these little funky characters from the glyphs panel. The glyphs panel can be found under your type tool, and it shows all the special characters that go with whatever fonts. these words, typophilia, typophobia, typochondria, and typothermia, those happen to be rendered in small caps, like that list that I sent you and in the instructions. And that just adds a little variation. You know, I'm not saying you have to use small caps. I'm saying that these are some of the things that you can employ that will separate a good layout from a bad layout. Now, taking it a step further, so I could have just used a dash right here, but instead I used a tilde, which can be found on your keyboard in the upper left. So these are really small, subtle things, but they make all the difference. So I can tell right here, I just found a mistake. I should have end quotes at this one over here that says print situates words. It's got a quote. Oh, I see. It follows down to here, and here's the closing quote. Never mind. It's okay. It's just a little hard to see. See, that confused me for a minute. I don't ever want to confuse my reader, and I designed this bloody thing. So you want to use a good combination. Now you're going to do it in a maximum of 2 fonts. So you want those fonts to complement each other. So a serif and a sans serif. And you want to choose at least one of those fonts that is a big family, so that they'll have things like small caps and condensed fonts and metallic fonts and bold and semi-bold. All those things are used to create hierarchy. We're all about visual hierarchy in graphic design. Where do we wish to draw the reader's attention first? Where do we wish to draw the reader's attention second? Now, we've been programmed our whole life because we've been reading this structure in books and in magazines and in newspapers, a header, a subheader, and then paragraphs. So we're really not divulging ourselves too much from that, but we're trying to make it nice. So I've got different type sizes on this page, but all of them are done so intentionally. Does that help?
Yes, that helps. Thank you.
So in order to make it work, we have to have the knowledge. So there's that list of things you could do that I sent that talks about drop caps and hanging punctuation and all kinds of stuff. And you may reference that if it helps. Yeah, okay. Escape. So I wish we had a whole semester almost to work on this, because book design's a big deal. It's usually the product of more than one individual. Especially if you're not paying for the publishing of the printing. So traditionally, you write a book and you submit it to a publisher like Simon and Schuster. And we're just talking about the contents of the book now, not anything that's designed. And the publisher reads it and decides based on the value of the book whether or not they want to publish it. So they're paying for that, and then they split the profits between themselves, the publishing company, and the author. The author being the intellectual owner of the property. So then the publisher usually pays a graphic designer to set the type and design the book. And if it's a big publisher like Simon and Schuster, some of the ones you may have heard of, you don't hear of them much anymore because books aren't what they once were, but they usually have in-house artists that would do that. I think I showed you the video about Chip Kidd, the TED Talk. And so he was an employee of a publisher and he did book cover design. So he would be one of the people in the chain. So it's not just the person who designs the cover. Someone has to lay out the text in the book. And that could be as simple as page after page, one column, 12 point, 14 point leading, you know, centered with page numbers, clear and crisp. It might be something really plain like that. Or when they divide the chapters, they might have decided, oh, we need a little design so we can differentiate these chapters. A lot of books you read, you just finish one chapter, you turn the page, and then the next number comes up. You know, in illustrated books, sometimes they fancy that up. So I guess I'm asking you guys to fancy it up. Okay, we were kind of talking about the review for the quiz. Not that one. We did that one before. It's open. Sorry, I'm finding my way home. Here's a good one, true or false. And it may be I have a body of questions that I pull from, a big bank of questions, and I pull questions for both the beginning quiz and the second quiz out of them. So forgive me if this is something that you've already seen on the first quiz. Effective graphic design can help the user of that design avoid reading. True or false? Anyone? Anyone? Traffic's getting heavy outside. I'm going to close my window.
Can you read it again?
Sure. You know what I should do? I wonder if I could just paste it like this. Yeah. Effective graphic design can help the user of that design avoid reading.
True.
Absolutely. So that's what infographics are all about. That's what charts and graphs are all about. If they tried to talk about the weather or physics or just about any complicated subject, and it was all written out in 10-point text, one column, it would be really hard to get your head around. So infographics, charts, graphs, all those things take something that would have been written out in a long paragraph and presents it in visual form. So that's one of the things that we desire when we design or when we write is brevity. We don't want to say more than we need to say because that just wastes people's time. And we don't want to over design. There's that expression that typography should be invisible. It should blend and represent the content so well that you just suck up the content and you don't even have any kind of difficulty in finding your way around the document. So we already did the Renaissance one. Right, you should know what a colophon is. You should know what a drop cap is. And here's a question from the textbook. It's kind of a trick question. I'll just copy it over. Really shouldn't have any trick questions, but there's what you know, and then there's what you know that you know. That was happening to this the other day too, and I never figured that out. But you can read it. How does typography manipulate the silent dimensions of the alphabet? Well, I guess we have to define first what are the silent dimensions of the alphabet. So that would be alphanumeric characters that don't have any sound. Can you think of any alphanumeric characters that don't have any sound, but we use them anyway? Trick question. Barb, don't answer.
I'm not going to do it.
Come on, Kat. Hit me.
No violence here.
Hey, good answer.
How people
So,
know.
oh, go ahead. So, what about a comma? Does a comma make any noise? I mean, sometimes you might be writing and dictating to someone and, insert a comma into the dictation. He said, comma, she said, comma. But when you read stuff, it's silent. What is the sound of a question mark? Now, it tells your voice to maybe have, an upward lilt. Will you make dinner? That implies that there's a question mark on the end.
I feel like Professor question marks kind of drag out.
Excuse me, say again?
I feel like the voice that question marks make, apart from like lifting up your voice, like you said, they also kind of tend to drag out. the sentence.
Yes. Will you please go and make dinner? Like that?
Please.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that one. I bet that one works pretty well. Okay. Excellent. What sound does a period make? So the answer is punctuation. See, I told you it was a trick question, but it's an easy answer. So in this class, we designed the International Fair poster. I'm leading up to the next question. And Chloe won, and she's back in Taiwan now. I don't know if she's here with us today, but they loved her poster. And unfortunately, we didn't get to celebrate. But you all did a great job on that. But the point I wanted to make is if they decided to use that poster in a publication, like in the campus newspaper or an outside newspaper or even on a website, they might have added stuff to it. Like they might have extended a little bit or created a little white space and added sponsorship logos. That's what usually happens. They don't really, ruin the piece, but once you've sold the piece to somebody and it belongs to them, they get to do whatever they want with it. And that can be infuriating to a new artist because you've given them the final presentation. They should use it like that. Damn it. I did a good job. You chose it. What was it you liked about it? And so the question is, it's very much true that if you design something and it goes into a commercial market or a reproductive market, print, web, whatever, that it will very likely change. And I don't mean change substantially, but change in the fact that things will be added to it, endorsements specifically. So the question is how, I'll paste it. I shall paste it. Get rid of that one. That is so weird that it does that. So if I paste it without a box, yeah, it's still doing that. So we'll do the best we can and we'll read it in a vertical fashion. How and why might a finished graphic design piece, say a poster, change after it leaves a designer's hands? So the answer is, if you sell it to somebody, they can do whatever they want with it. And they might Fold, spindle, mutilate, add, subtract. You never know, but it's not yours anymore. So that's what separates us from fine artists. So you wouldn't like put a new head on the Mona Lisa, at least not actually on the painting. But graphic design is just fodder for business. One question will be, and I'll just read it, describe why setting up a document with a proper bleed is important to the look of the finished print design. I'll paste it. So that's what we were discussing earlier. Well, I don't know. No, we weren't discussing that in this class, but the question is still apropos. Oh, actually we did. We spent time on this when we were designing the fair poster. So we talked about how we set up a bleed and the fact that the printout, which includes the bleed, is larger than the final trim size of the document. So the question reads, describe why setting up a document with a proper bleed is important to the look of the finished print design. I wish we were in class and I had some samples, which I have right here and I could show you. It's not really going to translate to Zoom, but so if you go and get your 11 by 17 document, poster, whatever, printed somewhere, and you didn't set it up for a bleed, and you want the color to go to the edge, you're going to cut off the white border. But then it's not going to be 11 by 17 anymore. It's going to be something smaller than that. So if the client wants 11 by 17 full bleed, you have to print it on a larger piece of paper than 11 by 17, for instance. And then you have to set up the document with the bleed. And when you output a PDF, you have to tell the PDF to recognize the bleed, and you have to check the box for crop marks. So we're not printing anything in this class, so you don't need to know about that. But you should know that a bleed is something in a design that goes all the way to the edge. And to set up a proper bleed in print, you got to run it over the edge. So how could that affect the way it looks? Well, if I didn't set up the bleed on the front end and I didn't get it printed on a larger piece of paper on the back end, and I trimmed it down to less than 11 by 17 and the client wants 11 by 17, then I failed the client. Like he might have a little wall holder that fits perfectly 11 by 17. And now I'm giving him something and it's smaller all the way around. It's not going to look right. So dimensional things are important. Ooh, this one's good coming up. Oh yeah. I hope it makes sense. Name 3 ways to emphasize type using only the type panel in Illustrator or InDesign. So here's the type panel. And the type panel is essentially the character panel. Maybe this should be called character panel. So name 3 ways to emphasize type using only the character panel. No, it's kind of a trick question because the answers are easy. It's what we've been doing all along. And if you read over these basic things here, which go with your vocabulary, there's your answer. So I want somebody to say it though. There's so many, there's 22 participants out there, but I don't hear many voices.
You can emphasize it by using leading, kerning, bolds, italics, all of that.
Bless you. Perfectly well said. It's right there. You can change the size, you can change the leading, the tracking, the kerning. You can mess with different weights of font within a font family. Yeah, exactly. Spot on. Thank you. You know what it is? All those other people are taking a nap right now, and it's just like 4 of us.
You're probably right.
Possible.
Uh, describe at least 2 benefits of using PDFs for print or other kinds of output. So I think we talked about that earlier, didn't we, today? Was that this class?
I think so.
Okay. So it's been mentioned, here and there all along. So you could come up with about 4 or 5 benefits if you looked it up. But I'm only asking you to list 2. So somebody volunteer? Bueller, anyone?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, well, let me paste it. Forget that part. It's been a long day. Oh, there it is. Okay. Describe at least 2 benefits of using PDFs for print or other kinds of output. We use them all the time. PDFs, we love them. We use them all the time. They're kind of always going on in the background.
You don't have to outline your text as one.
Right. So it freezes your font. That's
You
like
can see how
huge.
the bleed looks.
You can what?
See how the bleed's going to turn out in the end with a PDF?
Yeah, that's true. Because it if you don't recognize the bleed, that is, when you output the PDF, it'll show where it would be trim. That's like a bonus, but I'm looking for something more substantial.
I don't know if this is one of them, but I remember you telling us that if you output it from Illustrator, you have the option of re-editing the PDF. I don't know if that's one of them.
You're barking up the right tree. If I create a document and output it to PDF like an Illustrator document, I'm going to archive the Illustrator document, and I'm going to output from that as many PDFs as I want. So I'm not really concerned about the editability of the PDF. I think that's right. So Barb mentioned fonts. That's one of the biggies. Maybe one of you should just Google it because this is important. Oh, hello, I'm looking at the chat room. Fidelity. Isaiah, would that be color fidelity? Because in this case, it's not true. They sometimes give color shifts. From Angelina, they retain the resolution of the images and text. Excellent. But in so doing, because I had that in my native file, and they do it, but they do it with the benefit of smaller file size. So you're barking up the right tree. Yeah, exactly. Right on. Easier to open and review docs, yeah. So for heaven's sake, if you send out Illustrator documents, everybody would need Illustrator to look at them, to even open them and look at them. Whereas everybody in the world pretty much has a free Acrobat reader that came with their computer. And you can download it for free if you happen to live in a cave and you don't have a PDF Acrobat reader. They're free. Excellent. Yeah. Okay, we're getting some answers now. Describe 2 prime. Let me paste it. Come on now. Describe 2 primary methods of balancing text and/or images in a page layout. So they're kind of fancy words. And it mostly refers to whether you're going to line up everything in the middle or whether you're going to balance the page by distributing the text and images not in the center. So in old school typography, mostly based on the limitations of the machine, everything was laid out in the center. So text, graphics, everything all down the center of the page. So it looked rather formal and like a wedding invitation or death announcement. So when they got away from letterpress design, where centering was easier to do than any other kind of page layout, when they started using offset machines, and people started thinking more about how they might lay a page out, not based on the limitation of the earlier technology, they decided they could spread it out on a page and still have the page balance. Okay, from David, using a grid, yes, but so you could use a grid to lay out an asymmetric. Ooh, I almost gave away the answer there. You could use a grid to lay out a centered design, or you could lay a grid to lay out a design that wasn't centered but still balanced. So you're barking up the right tree, but it's two words. It's actually the same word, and then one of them begins with an A. Symmetrical. Yeah, Alexa, ding, 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 right for $200. You rise to the head of the class. Dun, 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 dun. Right. Asymmetrical and symmetrical from Quinn. You guys rock. So you do it anyway. You know, you lay out your page like you laid out your poster for your fair poster. You laid it all out. Most of you didn't lay it out in the center, but those are the two methods, asymmetrical and symmetrical. Here's what I have to show you. I'll post the question and then I'll show you in InDesign. What is meant by the term hanging punctuation in regard to a page layout? So in a page layout program like InDesign or Quark, they have this feature. So let me just fill that with text. Don't want it to be too big though. Okay. Type, fill with placeholder text. Still too big. Let me make the box a little bigger. Oh. Okay. Regular old text box. But oftentimes you're bringing quotes or other types of punctuation in. So I'm going to add a quote here, an open quote. And I'm going to toggle off the guides so you can see it just hanging there by itself. And this is something type geeks appreciate. Do you see how the alignment of the E in this first word has now been shifted to the right to make room for the quote mark. So the quote mark is aligned with the O in the word beneath it, whereas before the E was aligned with the O, and that looked nice. It made a nice straight line. But now that line has been interrupted a little bit. So we got an app for that. In your Windows panel, you have a panel called Story. Yeah, it's under Type in Tables, Story. Who would ever thought they'd call it Story? Just the weirdest thing in the world. Okay. So leaving my cursor blinking right next to that piece, I'm going to click this box. There's only one thing you can do with this box is click it. And it pushes the punctuation off so that the alignment of the E and the O, although isn't quite as exact as it was before, you've got a nicer matrix. So now this quotation is offset. Now, geeks like me thinks it looks better if you hang your punctuation. So the answer to the question, what is meant by hanging punctuation, and it'll be a multiple choice question. It would be when we push some of the punctuation outside of the text box for aesthetic reasons. How's that for subtlety, man? True or false? Drop caps, I don't need to say that. You know what drop caps are. So I think anything else might be based on book design, like something about establishing master pages, like what is the function of master pages in a multi-page document like a book? The answer would be to bring common elements through multiple pages of the book so that the front page of the book and the last page of the book and everything in between would have some kind of consistent style. What else? Should know what a dot leader is. I guess I already mentioned that. Don't be afraid, on another note, don't be afraid to change the portfolio pieces that you're bringing in. I think this was mentioned once before, but I think it bears mentioning again, is that just because a given document, like your poster, for instance, your international poster, both sizes of that document are larger than your book that you're putting it in. So obviously when you bring in even the smaller one, you'll have to change its size to fit within the pages of your book. So you've got some options there. You can bring in all of it, and you can bring in part of it. You can work it into a smaller bit of your book. You could hang it off the edge to emphasize a certain piece of it. Again, we're talking about creative license. And how do you know what options you have for doing this? You look at books. You look at publications. It's all around you. People, the same tools and techniques that we're using here, everybody uses. You know, there isn't anything terribly special here, but just like anything else, you can do it well or you can do it poorly. Okay, we covered that. Must be something else. So I want to talk about a question from the last quiz because I graded it this morning, and quite a number of you got it wrong. Some of you got it right. And the question had to do with how large you could use a photograph if a client gave it to you. How large could you make it? and have it be ideally suited for print. And you all had the right idea, but most of you didn't quite breach the understanding between physical size of a document and resolution. So a lot of you put 300 ppi or a range of 150 to 300 ppi, and indeed those are resolutions that you can use for print, but they're not size. Size is physical. So at 300 resolution, what size is it? So the answer is you take the picture and you examine the picture, and it's going to have whatever resolution it has. It could be 600, it could be 200, it could be whatever you've got that you were giving. So you open that up in Photoshop, you determine both the resolution and the size. If you're going to use it for print, ideally you want to buck the resolution up to 300 ppi, and you need to exchange size for that. So you uncheck the resample box in Photoshop. You might recall this when we did the hand. And the resulting physical size is the size that you can use it in a print output and still look good. So you can't answer the question with by naming a dimension. It's whatever it will be at when we change the resolution to 300 ppi. And it tells you right there in that screen. So if I need to demo that, please let me know. But that was the answer. And that's the rule of thumb that you go by when you do print design. So you do print design, people are giving you photographs left and right. You don't know whether they're crappy or whether they're good or whether they're high or whether they're low. Most people don't pay attention to that. But you need to analyze each one and figure out how big you can use it in your document, or indeed if you can use it at all. So sometimes you'll change the resolution of an image to a proper ideal resolution for print, say 300 ppi, but it'll be 1/2 inch by 0.2 inches. Well, you can't use that, it's too small. So it's that judgment that you make by examining the resolution that I want you to understand.
So James, I heard anywhere from 240 to 300 is okay to print.
You're going to hear a range.
Okay.
And the range is not going to be the same from different sources. Now it's the 300 is pretty much universal.
Yep.
But some print shops work on no less than 600.
Oh, okay. So we really don't want to go below 300. It's 240 was wrong.
Well, no, it's not wrong. It's just at the end of the day, you still have to use the picture.
Well, that's true. It's just not optimal.
You have to
Okay.
put this in my newsletter. You have to.
Yeah, I hear you.
So
You have to make it look
sometimes you
the best.
sometimes you gotta buck it down to less than ideal. Like when we get up every day and do what we have to do, we do it in less than ideal circumstances. So it's the same with the photo. So and that whether it's down to 240 and up to 300, or whether it's down to 150 and up to 300, that is so subjective because it depends each on the photograph itself. You might have a really good photograph that supports manipulation, it's well lit, high contrast, or you might have something subtle and breezy and blurry, and it's just going to look like crap. So you have to make a judgment case by case. Good question. So here's a question. I'll post it. And then I want to get out of here at 5 o'clock if that's all right with everybody else. So we'll just go for a few more minutes. Not that I don't love you. Oh, look, it came out right. Isn't that lovely? All right. It's true or false question. Most graphic designers create every graphic they use in their designs from scratch. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Okay, I'm gonna ask for a volunteer. Okay, you done pushed me to that point now. So let me check my Zoom, see who's still here. You victims.
I feel like they don't use them from scratch. They grab inspiration from other designs and they modify them accordingly.
Great answer. Great answer. The answer is, if it were true, false, which it is, the answer would be false. So the basic job of a graphic designer is to get text and graphics from other people and do page layouts with it. Now, when we're in an atmosphere of education like this, we are both the typographer, or the source of the text, we're the source of the images, and we're the source of the layout. Now, to make any money in this world, you need all of those skills. But very often, especially where they have to move really fast, they use all kinds of clip art and already existing iconography. Now, in this textbook, like you might bring in glyphs, for instance, and
So
they're like little icon drawings, and just because you didn't design them doesn't mean you can't use them.
would another answer be that it's just less time consuming?
Well, it would be, but that doesn't address why, or it doesn't address whether it's true or false. So yes, it's more time consuming to draw everything from scratch, and that's a good reason not to. Yeah, but all you would have had to say was false to answer the question. Good, good. See, now I'm having fun a little bit. Here's a design question. So a little while ago, we addressed the two ways of balancing text and images on a page. And the answer from the smart people in the class was asymmetry and symmetry. So when we had that lecture and we talked about balancing pages, page balance, we talked about why. So technical restrictions often dictate how something's going to look. So a letterpress, kind of old-fashioned. It was physically much easier to design everything in the middle, and it became an aesthetic, and it worked, and it still works. But so we got closer to the 20th century, asymmetric layout, modern design started influencing things, and it was considered desirable, instead of lining every damn document in the middle, to expand the page layout options and do some asymmetrical layouts, where there were items on the left and items on the right of different sizes and visual weights. And if you place them in the right area, the composition looks great, looks balanced, and you did not have to line everything up in the middle. So you might ask a question, why is asymmetry generally more advisable than symmetry and page layout? And I'm speaking in modern terms now. So the answer is something like, if I did everything in a symmetrical layout, my work would be very boring, and it would always look like a wedding invitation or a funeral announcement or some sort of formal, old-fashioned calligraphic handwritten or something like that. Ooh, this might be a matchup where you actually can choose from a list, or it might be essay, I'm not sure. But let me list the question. And then we're just about out of here. This will be the last one. List 5 things that you can do to change the appearance of text. Oh gosh, it's way more than 5, isn't there? You can bold it. You can italicize it. You can make it thin, or you can make it fat if you choose bold or thin. So all of the choices within a given family. But you can also kern it, and you can track it, and you can add a drop cap. You could add an effect to it, like a drop shadow or glow. Any number of effects. You could warp it. You could type on a path. So there's about a jillion of them, but you just want to come up with 5 or match 5. I'm not sure how I wrote that. I don't remember. Okay, I think that's enough for today. I don't think we really need to hang out another 20 minutes to finish the class. I'm taking any questions though before we part, or if I need to review something.
I was wondering if I could talk to you privately.
I'm sorry, you broke up there. Could you say that again?
I was wondering if I could talk to you privately.
Oh, sure. We would have to wait till everyone else left the meeting. So let's see if anybody else has any questions before that happens.
Okay, for sure.
Does anybody else have any questions before we part the meeting and I talk to David? That is David, right? Yeah.
If we have any questions later, could we email you, Professor?
Absolutely. Please do. And I've graded a lot of stuff you may have noticed, and I'm gonna try to get everything I can graded before we meet next week, so you'll have an idea of where you stand.
All right, thanks, James. Have a good week.
Thank you. You
Thank you,
guys get. Thank you. You guys get out of here. We got to talk.
Hey, James, could you please go over the dot leaders thing? Because I missed that earlier.
No problem. It is going to be in the recording, but I can give you a quick one right here, so you don't have to troll through. So you got a text box, you got a word. So maybe that says chapter 1. And then I'm just going to make up a page number where I can find chapter 1. That's page 32. So I do that first, and then either leaving my text cursor blinking or fully selecting the word, I come up to my type menu and I choose tabs, and it lines it up all nice and pretty for me right there. I like that. So the left side of this ruler lines up with the left side of the word. Okay. So I left tab, center tab, right tab. I want to set a right tab because I want it to go over here somewhere and then put the dots between it. So I've selected that tab. You can see it's depressed. And I'm just going to come over here somewhere and I'm going to click like that. So that little blue right-hand tab has been set. And then I come over here and my cursor is between the word and the number, and I hit my tab key. And it went to the second line here because of this thing right here. So this little slidey thing will extend it to where I did put the tab. And this was determined by the size of the text box. So the size of the text box was that size. Damn it, I should be able to move this. Or maybe I need to make a new tab. But you should be able to slide that over. I'm never quite smooth with this. Ah, there we go. I just needed to make the text box bigger. So I have a tab right here. and I can move that tab to either extend or contract. And what's nice is you set up all your chapters and page numbers like this, and then you could do it all in the same text box. And then if you decide you want it wider or narrower, you can do that without making the dots mess up. So if I move this tab, I say, oh, I want it wider. Well, now the tabs, the dot leaders are still super uniform. Oh, I'd prefer a narrower column. Oops, went too far. I prefer a narrower column. Dots are still perfect. So there's a jillion tutorials on YouTube about this if you need a reference.
You said this
So-
was, you said this was for the table of contents?
Yes,
Okay.
it's not a mandatory thing to put in the table of contents, you know. But if you're gonna separate, you know, the word and the page number, you want to figure out an easy way for your viewer, you know, to connect Word and 32.
Yeah, or I guess another error would be like the comma in the previous student examples that you showed us, how they had the comma like right, between the numbers, so it didn't really look visually appealing.
How gauche, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd be so embarrassed.
Well, yeah, thank you for the demo.
Yeah, and you got some older stuff you need to turn in, bro.
Oh yeah,
I know
yeah,
you did it already. You just didn't
yeah.
turn it in.
Yeah, I'm a little bit behind.
Okay, no rush. We got a week.
Yeah. I'm gonna be busy. That's for sure.
Yeah. You guys have to stay for finals week on some of your classes.
Yeah.
I had another question.
Yes, sir.
So on the, because I know you said for the Helvetica event,
Yes.
you said it counted as double points. So that means, so we're gonna do that one, and that means that we only have to do 3 more, right?
Absolutely correct.
Okay. And then also another thing I wanted to advise you that for the project, the poster project, I emailed it to you, but I completely forgot to submit it onto Cougar Courses.
That's
Um,
perfectly fine. If you just do it later, it'll go right back up. No big deal.
Okay, so I won't be like marked points off because I
Of course
turned.
not.
Okay.
Of course not. This is just me getting you to notice that you need to upload it.
Okay. All right. Okay. Sounds good then. Thank you.
Thank you. See you later, David.
All right. All right, James. Have a good week, and I'll see you next Friday.
Okay, stay out of trouble, bro.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up,
Let's see. Who do we got left here?
Cooper?
We got Mr. Cooper. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Are you feeling? You're feeling well enough to attend? Awesome.
Yeah. Were you able to read my email from earlier this week?
Yes.
Okay.
And I did answer one this morning.
Oh, sorry. I didn't.
That's
see
all
that.
right. And I put a date in there for
Okay.
you to an extended date for you to turn things in.
Okay. Cool. Because I mean, I've had to do that with all my classes. So it's like I have the assignments that are due for all the classes right now, and also the assignments that are going to be due next week and the week before this present week. So it's like I'm like trying to jumble doing all the work for the past 3 weeks.
Well, and feel well enough to do it.
Yeah.
Believe me, I sympathize so much with what you're going through. So what I guess it's just two of us now. So I just typed it into the chat. So I'm wanting everything to come in on May 8th, which is next week, but I don't actually have to post my grades till like the 20th or something like that. So if
Okay.
you could, so I'm shooting for, if you could finish stuff by May 14th,
All right.
which would give you another 6 days. But if worst comes to worst, and like, oh, I just got one more to do. You upload what you got, I'll grade it, and then, oh, James, it's going to be the 15th or the 16th before I get you that last one. Just let me know. I'll be okay, and I'll just hold off posting
Okay.
grades until you're exhausted.
I mean, I think the 14th should be fine. I'll take advantage of what I'm available to, but it's not like I haven't been doing the work, because I've been doing the work, and
Oh,
like
I know.
I've started all
Even when I was absent, you were sending me the work.
Oh yeah. So like I'm pretty sure I'll have it done by then.
You do good work. You
Thank
get
you.
it.
Well, I mean, that's really the only question, or the only thing I had to talk about.
Okay. Well, then it's a beautiful day outside. Maybe you can enjoy part of it.
Yes, I hope that you do too. You do too.
Oh, I'm going out right after this.
Oh, for sure. Are we meeting for class next week, or?
Yes, same bat
Okay.
time, same bat channel.
All right. Well, I'll see you then.
Okay.
You have a good one.
You too.